The Elbaf Arc is gearing up for one big fight, Luffy versus Loki. Because if you pay attention, Oda shows the same sad ending for all important characters tied to freedom in this arc. Rock's XEBEC got erased from history, King Harald naively fell into the hands of the world government, and now we currently have Loki, who was marked as accursed even before he was born. So in this video, I'll show you how Rox and Harald represent two flawed paths to NIKA, why their failures made them easy targets for the world government, and how that exact pattern is setting up Loki to be the final obstacle Luffy must face. Oda doesn't lecture us on freedom, he shows us the body count. In Elbaf, that lesson is written in three specific names: Rox, Harald, and Loki. Rox was treated as a problem to be erased from history. King Harald started as a reformer, but is being reframed as a tragic failure. And Loki, he doesn't even get the benefit of hindsight. He's been labeled, locked up, and drowned in shame before he even had the chance to fail on his own terms. The outcomes vary, but the result is identical. Whenever someone in the story tries to change the world order doesn't negotiate, it removes them. But once you see that pattern, the question becomes unavoidable. If Elbaf is telling us that the world always resolves its crises by removing the person at the center, what happens when the next person in that role is still alive? The tragedy here is specific. Rox and Harald didn't fail because they made the same mistake. They failed because they made opposite mistakes. And Oda goes out of his way to show that. Oda refuses to give Sun God NIKA a clean definition in the Elbaf Arc. To the Giants, the Sun God is a Rorschach test, a savior, a destroyer. The ambiguity is the trap. Instead, Oda introduces us to a legendary figure as a proxy for NIKA, Davy D. Jones. Now, Rox worshipped Davy Jones, his ancestor, a figure tied to greed, cursed by the Sea Devil, and believed by Rox to have been once king of the world. Through that lens, freedom means reclaiming a throne, tearing down the world order, taking control, ruling everything. Harald represents the opposite extreme. As a giant of Elbaf, he follows the tradition of worshipping Sun God NIKA. His idea of freedom is peace, restraint, and protection. Sun God NIKA isn't just a hero, but he isn't just a destroyer. True freedom requires both. You need the balls to smash an oppressive system and the decency to protect the people you're freeing. Drop either one and the whole thing falls apart. Rox embraced destruction without responsibility, while Harald embraced peace without resistance. And once you clock that, it's obvious why the Elbaf Arc keeps showing us the same loop. And that brings us back to Loki, because unlike Rox and Harald, Loki isn't a flashback character. He is alive. Usually the story solves this problem by burying the Liberator in history, but Elbaf kept Loki alive, unresolved, and standing at the exact same fork in the road that destroyed the men before him. That is not an accident. The Elbaf Arc is repeatedly informing us that if resolving crises by executing Liberators continues to be a thing, and Loki is the next figure in line, then something has to interrupt the pattern. The question isn't can Loki overcome it, it's why does the world order ensure every Liberator fails before they even start? So Oda isn't just writing random tragedies here, he is building a specific narrative structure called a fall arc. In a fall arc, a character doesn't turn evil because they're irrational. They adopt a dangerous worldview as a psychological shield, a way to survive after watching the world fail them. And at Elbaf, we're watching this happen in real time. And in the past, Rox was the first case study. He looked at a world ran by celestial dragons and decided the solution was simple: become an even bigger asshole than the ones already ruining everything, but for the sake of his family. Freedom meant might makes right. Tear down the world order and take the throne. And whenever there were bumps in the road, he didn't course correct, he doubled down. That is the tragedy of the fall arc. Instead of seeking balance, the character becomes more convinced that only more force will work. Then you have the opposite extreme, King Harald. Harald took all the ancestral guilt, shoved it right into his soul, and overcorrected it so hard he swung the pendulum clean off the rails in the opposite direction. He decided that restraint, diplomacy, and obedience were the only way to protect Elbaf. But this leads to the exact same trap. Instead of empowering his people, he centralized the burden onto himself. He submitted to a world order he thought he could manage. This creates a double failure for anyone watching history. And this is where Loki becomes the most dangerous figure in the arc, because Loki has grown up watching both models fail. He knows might makes right is a trap. He knows submission is a lie. So if the fall arc pattern holds true, Loki won't try to copy them. He'll conclude that the only way to secure freedom is to become something the world has never seen, a singular monster strong enough to exist outside the system entirely. And this is where the world government reveals its true strength. They don't just defeat these Fall Arc characters, they rewrite them. Look at the specifics of Rock's downfall. The order of events matters. Rox didn't just challenge the world government, he infiltrated the Room of Flowers and declared that he would take the empty throne. That act didn't just make him a pirate, it identified him as a singular rival to the hidden ruler of the world, Emu. From that moment, Emu didn't even need to defeat Rox publicly. Emu needed to invert him. Through Domi Reversi, Rox was stripped of his agency and turned into a demon. His ambition was weaponized against his own family. He wasn't NIKA or Davy Jones. He was a rabid dog that Roger and Garp were forced to put down, leaving Garling to deliver the final execution. This is the horror of the Fall Arc. By trying to be the singular symbol of freedom, Rox made himself a target. He was isolated, inverted, and erased from history. Harald fell into the exact same trap from the opposite direction. By tearing off his horns and accepted the invitation to join the Knights of God, he tried to negotiate with that same power structure, and just like Rox, his agency was overridden. He became a tool that endangered the very people he tried to save. This is the single point of failure theory in action. If freedom depends on one man, whether he's a conqueror like Rox or a diplomat like Harald, the world government only has to break one man. And that is the cliffhanger we're standing on. Loki is positioning himself as the next single point of failure. So when it's all said and done, I think eventually he'll come to the conclusion that carrying the burden alone is the only way to survive. Not for himself, but for Elbaf. But narratively, he would be walking toward the same fate. To be isolated, to be demonized, and ultimately erased from history. But this isn't just history, it's narrative structure. So once we close into the end of the Elbaf arc, like the third act, Loki's false belief won't look wrong anymore. It'll look necessary. It's important to remember where Loki started. Early on, Loki thought freedom meant the right to smash everything, but that belief will have to turn into something far more dangerous. Sacrifice. He will believe that Elbaf can be only protected if he stands alone and absorbs the consequences. He's positioning himself as the martyr, and Oda doesn't just communicate this through dialogue, he staged it physically. Loki was chained to the Treasure Tree Atom, the foundation Elbaf is built on. Treasure Tree Atom functions like Yggdrasil, a structure supporting the underworld, the sun world, and the heaven world. This framing matters because when Loki talks about ending the world, he's not just fantasizing about blowing shit up for fun. Loki's desire to end the world mirrors Fenrir, the Norse mythical force that triggers Ragnarok, which I discuss more in this video here. But look at the mechanics. In chapter 1141, we learn that Treasure Tree Atom's weakness is fire sparked by lightning. Then in chapter 1142, Loki calls down lightning itself using Ragnir. Read symbolically, that isn't Loki attacking Elbaf, it's Loki attacking himself. So this is the danger. The moment someone decides to be the solution to freedom instead of sharing the burden with others, freedom becomes vulnerable. This means once Loki positions himself as a protector of Elbaf's freedom and future, the conflict becomes even more personal. That's when the lie will become physical, and Loki will offer to be the symbol of fighting for Elbaf's freedom, becoming an obstacle for Emu and the world government to point at him and say, yeah, fuck that guy. We have seen this pressure before. Vivi tried to shoulder Alabasta's problem all alone. Momo tried to carry Wano before he was ready. In both cases, the story showed us that this solitude can crush you, and in both cases, Luffy intervenes, not by replacing them, but by refusing to let freedom rest entirely on their shoulders. Loki will be standing at the same cliff edge. If he confronts the world alone, he doesn't liberate Elbaf, he creates the exact vacancy the world government exploits. This is where Domi Reversi enters Loki's story, not as punishment, but as consequence. Think of it as a parallel to Thriller Bark with the zombies, which, speaking of zombies, we got the Knights of God with their immortality, giving them that zombie-like touch. Thematically, it was about bodies moving without consent, shadows overriding identity, and people being reduced to tools. That state wasn't evil, it was theft. A demonized Loki wouldn't be a villain to be executed, he would be a victim of theft. And theft can be undone because that's where Luffy will come in with his final attack that would defeat a demon Loki. So the goal isn't to overpower Loki, the goal is to restore autonomy. Throughout the fight, Luffy would hear Loki through the voice of all things, mirroring how Roger and Garp heard Rox through the voice of all things, pleading for death at God Valley. As Loki asks to be killed to stop the monster he's become, Luffy will refuse. he won't see a villain, he'll see someone who was never given a chance to choose. Now, if you recall my theory on the 5 elders and how their haki was stolen by Imu, I proposed that souls in One Piece behave like tiny versions of a sun, essentially a completed version of the Mother Flame. Imu's immortality is granted through their covenants, which I proposed would freeze the soul into a spiritual save state, so they can no longer experience the freedom to grow or change, allowing Imu to control them. This is why Gear 5th on top of Conqueror's Haki Infusion matters here. The attack would likely resemble a variation of Luffy's Thor techniques, because let's be real, this is the Elbaf Arc and we're talking about Norse mythology here. So let's call it Gum Gum Thor Giant Rifle. Loki would summon lightning through Ragnir, and instead of resisting it, Luffy's rubberized body would function as a lightning rod, drawing that energy in, coating it with his arm on top of Conqueror's Haki that's reached critical mass. Upon landing the blow to the target and reaching Loki's soul, the drum's alliteration would be amplified by Conqueror's Haki and travel through Loki as if he were a medium, like a bell. The impact would mirror the same manner by which Luffy defeated Enel using the Gum Gum Golden Rifle, while simultaneously ringing the Golden Bell on Skypiea. The force of his drum's alliterations in conjunction with his critical mass Conqueror's Haki would then spread like a wave of vibrations across Elbaf to reach the rest of the giants that Imu transformed into demons and cure them. Under this framework, Loki doesn't die like Rocks or Herald. He becomes the Golden Bell. Like I said before, the manga has already told us about the treasure tree Adam's weakness, fire sparked by lightning. Symbolically, Luffy would embody both. As Nika, he brings the fire of a living soul, and as a conductor of electricity, he redirects the lightning of judgment, and he's faced a lot of judgment his entire life. That is why Luffy can't succeed where Roger and Garp couldn't. They could only stop Rocks, but they couldn't save him. Luffy can save Loki. But if you want to understand more on how Imu frees his freedom in the first place and why the ice metaphor is literal, that explanation comes first with this video here.